David, great to see you.
Great to
It's
see
all
you.
about you. Get us started. You just graduated from Palm Beach Day School in the ninth grade. Take it from there.
Oh, all right. So I went to Lawrenceville. Part of the decision was I was from the New York area before. I came down to the day school in the middle of third grade. And so big reason I chose Lawrenceville was being close to New York, which I went into a lot. And then I wound up I got into Penn, believe it or not, into Wharton, which was back then the backdoor way into Penn. Now it's, the hardest way in. But back then, if you were good in math and science, you got in. And then I wound up at law school in New York. And then I worked at a technology company, which became AT&T Wireless. And then I came back and I had a startup in the late 90s in Manhattan in the healthcare industry. And then I started, I sold that to one of my competitors in end of 98, beginning of 99. And I started managing money and then formalized that with a hedge fund in 2001. And that actually is where I really brought back my writing. And I started writing quarterly letters. In my background, the way I think is more what I would call a value investor. So looked a lot at Warren Buffett and a lot of other well-known investors who were what I call fundamental investors. So a lot of my letters, I started really spending, that's where I really learned the power of editing. And it's become a passion of mine. I drive my boys crazy. But I had a hedge fund from mid 01 to mid 09, and I had another firm that I did a lot of work with, and we merged. And then so for a couple of years, I worked on this other firm, but it was very much a continuation of what I was doing before. And then in 2011, I actually had a bit of a health scare that wound up being much ado about nothing, a bad lab report. And I spent a couple of weeks scared, and I rethought my life. And then even when it came back that it was misread, I decided to change my life around, and that maybe that was a warning. And that was, I think, after the stress of 08, 09. And so I still to this day manage financial assets money, but in particular, the last 5-6 years, I've invested mostly in healthcare companies. I do a lot of writing, actually. I have a blog right now that I don't talk about, and I've written probably 100 postings or more. I've put up about 21 or 22, and I'm starting to regularly post. And that is real. It's all effectively letters to my boys about life, about life lessons, life rules, experiences with them. I think it's highly relevant to anyone, any particular dads with boys. It's called Been Near There. So I have beennearthere.com. And because I never wanted my boys to say I've been there, been there, done that. I think is the worst thing you can say to a child, as if you're minimizing their own individual experience. So, but life rhymes, similar, and similar even to the ultimate audience. What I hope will be when I start to, I guess you could say, promote it. I'm not looking to earn a living from it. But that's where I'm doing a lot of writing. And then and I actually wrote this other, which I don't know if I'll ever publish, but I created the adventures one night randomly, the adventures of Jose and Leo. And my in-laws have an animal rescue farm right across town. And this is probably about, I think this is 10, 11 years ago. So my youngest was maybe 4 and he wouldn't go to sleep. And we were done reading to him and we had the lights out and he kept saying, "Tell me a story." And Leo was a lazy kind of, happy, lazy lion, almost like Ferdinand the Bull. who hung out on the farm and didn't eat the other animals, and all the animals liked him. And then Jose was this crazy fly who was adventuresome, and he would fly into his ear every morning and wake him up and take him on and force him and get him excited to go on an adventure. And so I actually, this past, actually, you and I, Mr. Greco, had dinner in March of 19, and you told me to write. And so I started writing up these old stories. And I've recently talked to a few people potentially about doing picture books, storybooks on the adventures of Jose and Leo. And Leo is based on my oldest son, and Jose is my youngest son. And there's a character, El Toro, who's my middle son, and they all have their nicknames, but for various reasons. But my youngest, he's technically a fly in the book, but his nickname has always been Monkey because he's always climbing on everything and he's incredibly curious. But I've got 3 boys. They're 15, 17, 19. They all play lacrosse. One plays club lacrosse at University of Texas, Austin, which has got a very nationally competitive team, and he loves it. And it's the right pace with not being the pressure of NCAA lacrosse. The other boys are playing it, COVID permitting, this spring in high school. And I've dedicated a massive chunk of my life to them. My main thrust the last 5 years and going forward is investing in healthcare companies that are fundamentally changing the way healthcare is delivered. So areas like digital health, advanced diagnostics. I don't invest in drugs. Things that I think take 10 years or 15 years and are what I call binary, meaning, you could work all those years and it may not work. I don't like those kinds of things. And I love learning systems. I started, along those lines, I started a podcast 3 years ago that I ran for about 6-8 months, and that I started again this spring, called P5, which is the name of my firm, P5 Protocols. And it was mainly focused on doctors, practitioners that are innovative in the way they practice care. And then I recently started a podcast, started recording, and they'll launch in January with a very interesting woman in health-related behavioral economics, called, and I don't know if I can say this on air, but Getting Shit Done in Healthcare. And so and this is something that we're going to really try to move in the healthcare system, which has people talking about how you create change, how you build companies, how you get the healthcare providers like hospitals to adapt these technologies and diagnostics, and as well as how do you get insurance companies to pay for it, and how do you actually change healthcare? How do you improve it dramatically? And so, I love to talk, so I figured I might as well put it to use.
Let me jump in with 2 questions, okay? Number 1, first, have you thought of, which I'm sure it has occurred to you, and it will by the time how old are you now? You're what?
Take a guess. 52.
50, you're a young man yet, but have you thought about a novel?
That's what you said at dinner, and I have written the bones of a novel. And I went back after that dinner. So get this. So after that dinner, if I could turn the TV, the computer. So I went back and I read, a couple months later, I read Stephen King's On Writing. I've got right here. Where'd you go? Here. I've got Zinser's On Writing Well. I've got Strunk. I've got 25 different books on writing, and I've been trying to bring up my skill level dramatically. And yes, and it's on healthcare. And what I've had this crazy idea for how to change healthcare, which is gamifying, getting people to play what are called multiplayer role-playing games and let them tease out what will work. And so the novel that I have, the idea, which I've been trying to figure out how to make it interesting and add the extra intrigue that will carry people through it, is how I created the company, which I haven't created yet. But the idea for it came probably about 25 years ago. I read a novel, two novels, same author. One was called The Truth Machine and one was called The First Immortal. And they're kind of second-rate sci-fi novels. But they're very futuristic, and ironically, they've been very, very accurate on things I've read since and things that are coming to fruition now. And so the idea was that it's about creating a company that I think a lot of companies would not want to exist. So there is a lot of intrigue, but it's the typical Joseph Campbell hero's journey, which I also went and read, because how can you create a story without reading, an epic story, and the struggles and fights to build something that would actually fundamentally change the world. And so I've been writing it on and off, more on, because when I went back to like Stephen King, and what he talked about was putting all the alcohol he consumed in his early years, that he would just disappear for 4 hours every morning and just write and see what came out and let the characters develop themselves. For me, it's about letting the characters and the technology, with all the other reading I do, let it come out that way. So in other words, I'm doing a lot of the writing, not necessarily to write a novel, but to help me figure out how I'm thinking about even business.
Right. Let me give you just one little bit of advice, okay?
Yes. I'm getting a pen.
You go to all these books and this and that and that. Forget all that. Forget you have all you need as far as your writing ability. Forget all the how to, throw those all out and just write.
Yeah.
Just write. Get up and put down and do that. That's all you need. You understand? The rest, because I know where you are as a writer, technically you have all that. Don't waste your time on that. Write your book. You got it? That's all.
I'm promising on a recorded line.
Second question.
Yes.
Question. Where are we in healthcare? Are you pessimistic or optimistic as a country?
Well, my current view, which I reserve the right to change, is that COVID disclosed an unhealthy population, right? It made it so we couldn't avoid how unhealthy we are. I don't believe we have, we spend the most on healthcare, but we don't have the best outcomes. Most of that is because of how we eat and the stress and how we live our lives. I don't believe it has anything to do with the quality of healthcare. The quality of healthcare in this country is second to none. My understanding from people I know at one of the big drug companies that are involved in the vaccine is that it's very effective. And so obviously over time, we'll see whether some random side effects come up in a bunch of the population. But so far, it looks extremely promising, such that by March, we should be returning to some sense of normalcy. But as a country in health, the bigger issue is, can we take responsibility for ourselves? I'm concerned at the way our government does things, is that, we throw money at things and that solves it. It doesn't solve it, because no one's taking responsibility for their own health. So the healthcare system it's breaking under its own weight, but it's breaking because we're all just generally so unhealthy. I don't think it has anything to do with the quality of care.
Okay, I kind of always, and all I can base that on is the care I have got, which is the greatest. I've had the greatest doctors, this, that, everything. But from when I look around and when I see people, how they abuse themselves, on what they eat and what they drink,
Yep.
and how they don't take any care of their bodies at all as far as exercise with that, and
Yep.
how much beneficial just adhering to a few of those programs would do. And they don't do it. They don't do it. So I'm kind of pessimistic there.
If you can see, I have a lot of books, and I have many more than that. My thinnest, smallest book was written by a NASA scientist. It's probably about 40 pages, but heavily documented. And she spent 30 years, this researcher spent 30 years at NASA, and the book is called Sitting Kills.
Yeah, yeah.
That is literally the name of the book. And she went through it. And the fact that we don't move, and we don't eat healthy food. So, and we're stressed. We're very materialistic, and we're stressed out.
Let me throw another thing out for you to think about, okay, in your writing career, Remember this, you have up here, buried in there, ready to, whenever it's ready for you to come out, you have the makings of a great novel, okay?
Okay.
David Eigen, Day School, and on. You have a novel here, David, because I remember some of your issues here. And in those issues, believe me, there's a story. There are many stories, but you telling it from your viewpoint, of course. So anyway, but you have that, you have a book there, David. Put it away, take out a notebook and just put Palm Beach, and then just jot down things as they occur. And that's how you do it. You're not going to read a book and they're going to tell you how to do it. You know, these guys who write how-to books, if they knew how, they'd be doing it, and they wouldn't be writing how-to books in there. Okay. You might get a few ideas, but
they're fun.
You already have up here. Now the rest is just getting it out, fleshing it out.
I hear you. I actually, I bought about, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, I bought another Warner's because somehow my grammar book from the day school is gone. I actually enjoy learning different things.
A lot of your technical writing that you do in your business, I'll still look, I'll forget something. And wait a minute, I better look this up again.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about books that tell you how to write on, or things like that.
No, I don't read that. No, I don't read that. No, like McPhee, like for nonfiction writing. I love his stuff. And if I could have gone to Princeton and sat in his class, I would have. Because he brought out of people, the way you brought things out of us. And I edit my boys' papers. One of my boys, it's about 2 months ago now, he really, it was in AP literature, and he just wasn't answering the questions, and he got like a 78 on the paper, and I had heavily edited it. And he said, and he went to talk to the teacher, and the teacher said, Jack, when he's like, why didn't I get a better grade? He's like, I read it again. I think it's a good paper. He said, well, if you look at the questions, you didn't really answer the questions. But I want to tell you that the grammar and the wording was fantastic. And so I was like, oh, thank God. All right. But I'll tell you something interesting. My 15-year-old has an English teacher right now, and she doesn't know grammar. She doesn't know the English language.
David, years ago, how many years, I don't know, it became very fashionable, and I saw it from some of our young teachers here. Well, how much grammar are you teaching? First, we have to understand, when we talk about grammar, for the most part, when children are 6 years old, most of them know the basic grammar of the English language, of their language, whichever nationality, they know their basic grammar. It's almost inborn in them. So when we talk about what we teach in school, besides some basic grammar that you need for writing in that, we're talking usage mostly. Yeah. Do you say me or do you say I? Do you say who or do you say whom? Is that a rut? Things like that. But as far as the grammar goes, kids are born with things. You'll get a 6-year-old who will say, give me that or I'll go home, or I go home. They used a complex sentence there. Where did they hear about a complex sentence? So have you ever heard the name Noam Chomsky?
Yes.
Okay, you've heard. He's the great authority on language. And his theory is, and I agree with him, that you are born with instinctive knowledge of grammar. It's inborn. And there's great debate in the world of psychology and this about going on. But I think he's right. I think he's right. So what I've always tried to do is you need some basic grammar on subjects, predicates, dios, things like that to work on the usage. But mostly we work on the usage. You know, do you say this or that? Let me ask you this question, reminiscing. You remember
Yes.
your speech course?
My speech?
Your public speaking.
Yeah, 1 through 10 minutes over 10 weeks.
Do you remember your 10-minute final? Do you remember your 10-minute final?
My 5-minute was I was so desperate for an article, it was on coal, and I bored myself before the audience. I was so desperate for something new. I don't remember my 10-minute.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you one thing you may not have known, which and Mrs. Close was on our class call last week, but Sarah Kilborn was the only one who read War and Peace cover to cover in our grade.
Who? Sarah.
Sarah.
I interviewed her, by the way, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
But I told her, because I don't know if she ever knew that, but we all were talking, you know, when we were in your class. She was the only one who read it cover to cover.
Yeah. Anyway, but you got something out of it. You got something out of it. Just as when you had to memorize 75 lines. You remember those?
From Shakespeare? Yeah, absolutely.
Bergerac. Okay.
Yep. Oh my God, yes.
Parents used to tell me that up to the last year when I was there, why do you have those children memorize that? I don't want my child, and they'll give me this too, David. Mother will come in. The last class I had, she came in, she said, you have these kids memorize so much. I don't want my child to just memorize. I want her to be able to think. At that, I shove my chair back and I come out and I roll my pant leg up. And I say, you see this 12-inch scar where Dr. Hodge, the eminent orthopedic surgeon, put in a new knee so beautiful. I was playing basketball in 2 months. Do you know how much memorizing he had to do in order to learn that? I said, look at that sign. And I didn't have the sign when you were here, but it's gone up. Barbara made it for me, I think. And it says, facts and skills are inseparable. Yeah. You can't do anything without having basic facts and applying them. This idea of, we don't want them memorizing. We want them thinking. We want them thinking, but they don't have to memorize any facts in order to do that thinking. It just amazes me. And as far as the memory, though, in the last 12 years, I got another tool that I can use with parents. Because of some reading I've done in physiology and brain things, a number of doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists have come out and said, memory work possibly can be a bar to Alzheimer's. That yes. The more you work that memory, that this can preclude early onset Alzheimer's. So if for no other reason, okay, but also I like to think of this, that somewhere in that child's life, he or she can recite 75 lines written by the greatest writers of all time and be able to say it. Oh boy, I could be wrong on that though.
Okay, so do you still make your students, you still make them do it?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Can you give me the 75 lines?
Pardon?
Can you give them to me again so I can see either I may make my boys or at least one of my boys do it.
Oh, you're famous Friends, Romans, and Countrymen.
Yes, that I remember.
And many of the kids did that. That's the lines that they wanted to do.
Oh, so we're allowed to pick within the parameters of.
Oh, yeah, you
You
could do all 75, or you could do 30 from this speech, or 20 here, whatever. You could jump around the ones you liked. Yeah.
I definitely did Friends, Romans, Countrymen. I definitely did that. Definitely. Wow.
So David, let's reminisce. What other things do you remember about the day school that you still remember? You know, I'm 88 years old. I can remember things from first grade very vividly.
Yeah.
From third grade, fifth grade, sixth, very vividly.
Yeah. No, I mean, my, I mean, there's a lot of different stories.
Some of your classmates.
Well, Mark Murphy, Sebastian Atucha, Debbie Burdett, Sarah.
Yeah.
Guile Barrero was on the line. He came in 8th grade. I got, Karen List, Cabell DeMarcellis. Do you know, John Cassatley? Wow, I haven't seen him. And Paul Reynolds. Wow, Claudia Kirk. Oof. Who else? We got Sally Sasso, Skylar Woodcock, James Vlachos, Eli Shavitz, and there's Missy Robinson, who I still see periodically as well. No, there's a lot. I mean, I remember crazy. I remember 9th grade science fair, and I did a kit. I was in Mr. Sarko's class, and it wasn't a kit. It was he gave you, there were these, it's like a box, and it had different cards, and you could do projects. And I did this project based on one of the suggestions. And I wound up as a finalist only, and it was Suzanne Strasser. Remember her?
I remember Suzanne. So
Suzanne's father had just died a couple of days before. And he was a doctor. He was an orthopedic surgeon, speaking of knees, and he had stopped on the highway to help someone, and then another car hit the car he was helping.
I remember that.
And so, in the Jewish religion, after someone dies, you sit Shiva, and I wanted to, Suzanne and I were very friendly, and I went over, so I missed the awards. But I remember fighting with Mr. Davis because he was accusing me of having a kit and cheating. And Mr. Sarko is standing there going, I watched him build everything. He's not cheating. He didn't do anything. And Mr. Davis is like, oh no, that's a kit. And Mr. Sarko's like, no, this is what he used. This is what, and I remember like them arguing, and I'm like, I'm out of here. And I went to Suzanne's house and I left. And I think I came in second. So very funny. Look, I remember all the sports. I remember, I can remember where I had lunch, every day, and where it changed. But I remember everyone, coming into, what was the first grade that was it 6th grade? That was the first grade that you were our English teacher?
6, 8, 9, right.
Yep. And I remember going into 6th grade, and everyone was like, oh, Mr. Greco, he's so scary. I'm like, why is he scary? And I remember asking someone, a couple of people that were older, is he a good teacher? Oh yeah, you learn a lot. I'm like, then what's the problem? And he's mean. I'm like, and I remember asking something to the extent of, is he fair? And they said, oh yeah, he's fair, but he's like really tough. And I'm like, so is he tough or is he mean? And he's tough. And I remember being like, just thinking, like, why is that a bad thing?
Well, you got to remember this. That start a law, and little kids do that, younger children. He's ugly. Ugly, that sets off a lot of things. And if he's big and ugly and loud, there you have it.
Now, look, I remember all the writing the weekly articles.
The articles, the magazine articles, 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph, author's main idea.
Yep.
You had to give me the author's main idea. All I want, author's main idea. That's reading comprehension, right? Second paragraph, your opinion. What do you think? Now I want to find out what's going on up there.
Well, I'll tell you that I don't know. I used to save everything, but my mother at
How
some
is
point
she, by the
threw
way?
away. Sorry?
How's your mom?
She's great.
How old is she now?
She's 80.
She's a young lady. She's a young lady. My
She's
God.
in great shape.
Is she living in Palm Beach?
She's same house I grew up in at the north end of the island.
Same house. I'll be damned. Yeah, she's in good shape now. No, well, good.
She had her checkup yesterday. Blood work results, everything. The doctor said you have the blood work of I think of 60-year-old. So I said 16 or 60.
Who's her doctor?
Bruce Moskowitz.
Oh, okay. I thought Mark Rattinger's my. You know Dr. Rattinger? You know Mark?
I
Okay.
don't. I just know Bruce was my first adult doctor when I was 13 back in 81. He was so I'm still, in fact, he's the one that asked me to move my career around to start investing in healthcare and do it with him. And that's how I started and change things. Because he and I had an ongoing debate for over 20 years about where healthcare needed to go. So yeah, crazy. No, I mean, the articles, I remember math games with Mrs. Bayless and learning chess, which I have right outside this room is our living room. In the center of our living room is a chessboard, which the kids are all into now. Thank God for COVID in that sense.
What year is your oldest son in college? Freshman?
He's a sophomore.
What's he going to major in? Has he picked a major yet?
He went for a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, which gives you a lot of flexibility. And one of his friends in the spring was taking an advertising course, and he wound up helping him on a couple of projects, and he fell in love with it. So, and he's very creative. And that's where he wants to go with it. And he just took a course, and now he's taking more, and he's probably going to switch into that major.
Good. That's what you're there for the first couple of years, to look around and see, right?
That was my biggest thing. And then when COVID hit, and before the fall started, I said, go online, like sit in on classes. I said, I think you should take one introduction to engineering so you understand how people structure things to get them done, because you've never gotten that structure. The public schools here don't give you how to structure arguments, how to think structured. And he doesn't have that naturally because he's very right-brained. And I said, just do that. Even if you audit and sit in and don't get graded on it. And then sit in on philosophy and all these different things and figure out the most important thing you can do with college, I said, was figure out what you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if you can narrow it and work back from that, then you probably have a much better shot the rest of your life starting at a young age to know what to do.
My former students, so many of them, and I've had a number of professional writers, became professional writers, and many of the kids would come and say, when they're leaving, and especially if they were in high school now, what do you recommend in college? And I used to always tell them, number one, stay away from English departments. Just get your requirements, that's all. But I said, if you're interested in writing, take a couple science courses. You don't want to be completely ignorant in science. You want to know what's going on in science. Take a couple basic philosophy courses. You want to be able to understand certain philosophic things like that. Yep. And in psychology, things like that. And take some art. Take some music, especially take some classical music, because the music you enjoy today, enjoy it, but you're going to outgrow it. And I can't think of anything more horrible than going through life without having music in your life. I can't think of anything more. When I get on my bicycle every day David, 10 miles on my bicycle, put on an opera, a symphony, a Western, Hank Williams, whatever. I love all kinds of music except rap. I don't consider that music. And progressive jazz. I don't go for any of that. But every other kind of music I love, but especially the classics. And I tell them, listen to some of it. You're going to like it.
Yeah.
The reason that it's still there after a couple of 200, 300, 400 years. Listen to like it. And I said, but the most important thing, you want to write? Write. Every day, put down something. Every day, put down something, because you need a discipline. To be a writer, you got to discipline yourself. You got to go in there, and you can't say, well, I have to go in a different environment, or I need, no.
You know what I do now with companies that that I'm thinking of investing in. And, I mean, one of the most important things that I try to tell my boys about the importance of writing is knowing how to communicate, right? I mean, that's the essence of what it is. So what I do now is with companies, because oftentimes you ask a question, they answer it, you have this thought of what you heard, and it may not be what they meant. And you may have heard it wrong. You may remember it wrong because you didn't take notes, so I write narratives of where the company is, what I think it is, where I think they're going, and how long it will take to get there. And then I give it to the founders and have them tell me where I'm wrong. What did I misunderstand? But I write it as narratives, as stories. And
much more, the most effective of all, of course,
yeah.
Narrative writing. Tell me a story. Tell me a story. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Yes. Well, David, it's been great.
That's fantastic. It's always great connecting with you. And I would be there this coming week if.
Yeah, no, stay isolated. This we're going. Is the shot going to do it? You think?
Yes.
Will we be okay in 6
Yes.
months, 7 months, maybe?
I think by February, March, the vast majority of the population that needs it will be, if they want it, will be inoculated.
And okay, you'll be doing some traveling.
And one of my friends said, who's at one of the drug companies, he said he's never seen data like this before. And 4 or 5 months ago, he was very skeptical. He's not someone to be, when you're an executive at a drug company and the risks are binary, that the FDA says no, like, you don't tend to be an optimist. You tend to be a realist. And you don't get 95% efficacy unless there's something real.
Something real. Yeah, I think they've done an amazing job. Amazing job. So listen, David, remember that when you know you're coming down, the day or two before, give me a call. You have my phone.
I'm going to call you anyway just to catch up.
Yeah, do that. And we have dinner. Definitely.